The story you're about to see will hit you right in the heart. Imagine this. What would you do if, just hours before your wedding, you discovered undeniable proof that your fiancé was cheating? The person you thought you'd spend forever with turns out to be someone you barely recognize. You're not their one and only, you're just one of many. You're the unlucky, or maybe lucky, one they chose to settle with. Or perhaps, you're simply the one they settle for. Could you still smile at your family and friends as you walk down the aisle in your $10,000 wedding dress, say your vows, and commit yourself to someone you know has plans to be with others behind your back? These were the stakes for Jessica Garcia. Public humiliation, or a lifetime of knowing that every time her husband came home late, it could be because of his latest exploits with another woman. Sounds like two brilliant choices, doesn't it? In about 20 minutes, the priest would join Jessica and Paul together in holy matrimony, but right now, the 28-year-old was trembling as tears streamed down her cheeks. She would have been crying her eyes out if she hadn't been surrounded by her sister and closest friends, who were members of her bridal party. Jessica wasn't sure what she wanted to do yet, so she didn't want them to suspect anything was wrong. Instead, she kept her eyes glued to the screen, reading the same messages and scrolling through the same pictures for the 1,000th time in the space of 2 hours. When Cynthia noticed Jessica's troubled expression, she asked what was wrong. Jessica forced a smile and kissed her cheek, trying to hide her feelings. It was the best acting she'd done since college, where she and Paul first met. Back then, Jessica was studying theater and played the lead in a popular production, which is where Paul first saw her. After the show, he found her on social media and messaged her. They enjoyed each other's company and Paul attended more of her performances, but Jessica wasn't interested in dating or a relationship. I was in a relationship for over 5 years. We had been dating even before I got into college. Joe was my high school sweetheart, and I thought he was my husband, until I saw pictures of him at a party with one of my classmates. It took me a while to recover from that, and I just couldn't go through it again. But Paul's persistence and patience eventually paid off. Jessica agreed to go on a date, and after attending a couple of Broadway performances together, they started dating. While Jessica aspired to be an actress, her boyfriend studied photography. Though she was initially skeptical about being in a relationship, Jessica fell in love, and Paul made her very happy. Paul's career was growing quickly, so he had a busy schedule and was always traveling alongside his best friend Kathleen, who was also a photographer and singer. However, this didn't stop him from making time for his girlfriend. For his 25th birthday, he threw a surprise party where his friend Kathleen sang several songs to entertain the guests. Toward the end of the celebration, Paul proposed to Jessica. They planned to get married after a few months, but their plans changed when Paul was involved in a car accident. The photographer sustained life-threatening injuries to his leg and back. Jessica was told her fiancé had barely escaped death. When I got to the hospital, I could just sense that his injuries were very serious, and when I saw him, he was almost unrecognizable. The doctors were doing their best to ease our concerns, but we were all worried he might have sustained permanent damage. He didn't wake up fully until almost 48 hours later, and then we were told he might never walk again. The actress also had to donate blood several times for her fiancé, as their blood types were compatible. Jessica was responsible for a large portion of his hospital bills, and she and Kathleen took turns staying with Paul, who was in the hospital for more than a year. Although it took time, Paul defied the doctor's expectations and was able to walk again. 11 months later, he and his partner set a new date for their wedding. On the morning of their wedding day, Paul called his fiancée just to tell her how much she meant to him and how lucky he considered himself to be. However, less than 4 hours before she was supposed to walk down the aisle, Jessica got a message on her phone. When her friend Cynthia told her about it, she said, "Ignore it. If this person is important to me, they'll be seated at the wedding, not sending me messages. It's my big day, and I don't want to focus on anything else." The bride's curiosity was piqued when she received multiple messages from the same person. Jessica went through the messages, and that's when her world came crashing down. She realized it was Kathleen who had sent them. Kathleen wasn't just Paul's friend. She was also his lover. Jessica discovered that the man she was about to marry wasn't who she thought he was. A few minutes into reading the messages and scrolling through the pictures Kathleen had sent, Jessica had a panic attack. She fell unexpectedly, and her phone slipped from her hands as they went numb from trembling. She was sweating profusely and struggling to breathe as her heart raced faster than it ever had. Luckily, most of her bridesmaids weren't in the room at the time, only her sister Julie. She showed her sister the messages, and Julie wanted to confront Paul immediately, but Jessica told her not to. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do yet. Their conversation was cut short when they heard the other bridesmaids approaching the room. Jessica went into the restroom to ensure they didn't see that she had been crying. She wasn't sure how she was going to face her bridesmaids or her family and friends. When she stepped out of the restroom, Cynthia asked her, "Are you okay?" Jessica kissed her on the cheek and said, "I just can't believe how lucky I am to marry such a good man like Paul." As she walked down the aisle, Jessica thought about the numerous times she had left her fiancé with the woman she thought was just his best friend. She thought about the times he came home late, claiming the event he and Kathleen had been covering hadn't ended early. She remembered the countless work trips they took together that lasted for weeks. She thought about the times she found Kathleen at his place, only to be told they were working on a project together. And she remembered leaving Kathleen at the hospital with her husband. Jessica also recalled that Paul had told her Kathleen had a girlfriend and wasn't interested in men. They were all lies, just a ploy to spend time together. Kathleen and Paul had a huge fight 6 months ago, which was why Kathleen wasn't at the wedding. When Jessica stood before the priest, Paul immediately noticed something was off. This wasn't the joyful bride she should have been on her special day. He sensed trouble but had no clue what was about to unfold. After Paul finished saying his vows, it was Jessica's turn. She read from her phone, saying, "This weekend, you and I, it's on hot stuff. Bring your A game. You're the one I love, and Jessica is just a placeholder. She won't come between us." Every word Jessica read felt like a dagger to her heart. She finished with, "I wouldn't marry him, will you?" Kathleen's messages painted a vivid picture of their intimate encounters. After Jessica finished reading them, she calmly said, "There won't be a wedding today. Paul isn't the man I thought he was. I love you all, and as painful as this is, I'm grateful you're here. Instead of a wedding reception, we'll have a celebration of honesty, of seeking real love, and following your heart, even when it breaks." Paul left the church alone, his family watching in shock, horrified by his unforgivable actions. Meanwhile, Jessica's loved ones gathered around her, offering comfort and support. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.